For there are no words that in any way can comfort those whose pain is inconsolable. Yesterday I met with a family whose son has been kidnapped. We looked at each other and they said to me, "Hang me, Liam, there's nothing we can say." I remember with my own parents who came to this country after the Holocaust. They had lost 5 children from their previous marriages. And I saw the pictures of the kids. And I said to my parents, "Tell me about them. I want to know more about them." And they wouldn't tell me because they also felt, "Hang me, Liam, there are no words." So we come here today, yes, to offer words, but also to say, thank you, Senator. Thank you for not only the words, but thank you for the support that you're giving us during this difficult time. It means so much when we can stand together as family against those who don't respect family. The psalmist years ago spoke of a valley of tears. He says, people walk through a valley of tears. I want to say, at least this time, we the Jewish people are not walking alone. We're walking together with people who care and are committed to us. We are many and we are one. Thank you, Senator.
You know, when my dear friend Rabbi Potasnik called me and asked if I would stand with him today, that was an easy answer. I'm just surprised that there's not greater diversity of support from various members and leaders in our communities across the city. In the Hebrew language, I learned Hamas means violence. And that's exactly what has been perpetrated against innocent civilians over the last few days. Regardless of the intent, the result is the loss of innocent life. The problems are complex, but rape, terrorist violence is not the answer. It's going to take diplomacy, courage, wisdom coming together. The scripture says there can only be peace amongst men and women of goodwill. It's going to take them coming together and having a resolve to make a difference. So I stand here not for what I'm against, but what I'm for. And that is the life and dignity of every human person. Our prayers continue for the victims and their families. God bless.
And the night before, I was asked to come to visit soldiers in Hadassah Hospital. I saw the bravest young people in the world. By the way, Jews and non-Jews, from Texas, Canada, of course from Israel, and 2 from New York. And they only wanted to get better to be able to rejoin their fellow soldiers. Because what they're fighting for is not just for Israel and not just for Jews. It's for America. It's for democracy. It's Western values. This is a war of extinction. Many of you know for years I spoke against comparisons to the Holocaust because it was a unique event. But I will tell you what I saw when I went to the south of Israel from that hospital at the request of some of the soldiers who asked me to go down to be able to tell in America what I saw. The brutality, the inhumanity, the barbarism. Rabbi's right, there are no words. I can't close my eyes without seeing the images of the body bags. 70 in one truck, 50 in another. I was in State Road, which has been a target of all of the rockets over the years. And people ignored it. People didn't want to pay attention. The West keeps saying restraint, hold back, because Jewish victims are tolerated. No more. Not after what happened now. When they came by gliders and by sea and by across the barrier, clearly guided by Iran, for one purpose, and that was to massacre Jews. They went house by house in Be'eri, this idyllic little town of 1,000 people. wiped out completely. The houses were set on fire to force the kids who were being hidden there to jump out the windows, and they shot them. They beheaded young people in the town that they next door, Kfar Aza, which they had just come to while I was in the South. And the first time the soldiers were allowed in there because they had to clear it out because they still find terrorists hiding in these places. They found 200 bodies more, amongst them 40 children, most beheaded. But in all the places, the bodies were desecrated, mutilated. Is there a purpose for that? Does that better the Palestinian people? Does that bring peace? Anybody in the world who says today they stand with Hamas, whether they're at NYU or they're in the Middle East or anywhere in the world, will have to be held to account because they stand against everything America has stood for, that our young people have died for in 2 world wars and throughout the hundreds of years of our existence. This is a war against decency, against life. These young soldiers, their faces ashen because they had to go in. After these bodies were there for 2 or 3 days, the stench of death permeated every inch of the place. And they bring out little body bags. These people whose own children they're protecting at home. Little body bags. What did they do? Were they a threat? Did they pose some sort of a danger? This was a farming village. By the way, many of them left us very pro-peace. And there's nothing left. And we know this will happen village to village, town to town, kibbutz to kibbutz. They went indiscriminately, door to door, shooting. I saw the blood on the doorposts. I saw cars, rows of cars. They came with bikes and motorcycles down the main highway, just shooting into the cars, killing the people. I saw the doors left open and you could see the smudges of blood as they try to escape even then. So understand what this is really about. Senator, your initiatives are so important, but to protect American children in the future, to protect all of our children, our grandchildren, this is a war about the future, not the past. This is a war for life. You know, we are instructed to choose life. Most people don't have that choice. Today, we all have that choice to stand with Israel against the forces of evil, the forces of death, and to say we will stand in solidarity with them throughout the period until they root out this evil. You have to excise all the evil from in your midst, or it consumes you. This is a cancer. And now we see that coming from the north with Hezbollah, another Iranian agent, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Hamas, and soon the Houthis, and the others will join. This is a war about the future of the world. And if we don't take a clear stand, and I appreciate what the administration has done, I appreciate what Republican senators have stood for, and Democratic senators and congresspeople, this is a time when we have to stand together. No more body bags, big or little. It's everybody's responsibility.
Are characterized by 2 qualities. One which we embrace, and one which is desperately sad for us. One which we embrace is that we're to be a light unto the nations. We have a mission to teach values, to provide the world with moral clarity. And at the same time, we are characterized as a nation that dwells alone. Throughout our history and today, we feel very, very lonely. Those 2 characterizations are intertwined. We feel alone by the lack of moral clarity in the world. It's hard to speak after what Malcolm just described. The barbarism, the inhumanity, and on top of it, the fact that it's defended, the fact that blocks away from here, we still sit, as the sages called us, a lamb amongst 70 wolves. The light to the nations has not yet been made clear. And even in our country, we traveled last night to a rally with 30,000 Jews and non-Jews standing together in front of the United Nations. And one of the members of our team on the subway to the rally was shoved twice by a mature adult woman with insults. Our students on university campuses, light, there are places, unfortunately, of overwhelming darkness. But Senator, what you are standing here for and what you are saying, what the President of the United States, what President Biden said yesterday in 10 minutes was light, was moral clarity. And we need you to keep doing it. You're helping us feel a bit less alone. And you're helping us in our mission to indeed enlighten the world to what's true, to what's valuable. Hopefully, God willing, together, that light will spread. That light will spread, and we will not have to gather under such dark shadows. Thank you.
Now let's invite up Mary Schleifer from Council Presidents.
I have the privilege of working with Malcolm, and although I was not there this past weekend, I can tell you the Conference of Presidents, representing 50 major American Jewish organizations, is scheduling a fly-in to Washington, D.C. next Tuesday. I hope that we'll have the pleasure of your presence there. And that evening, flying to Israel to give support, a sense of solidarity, and I can only tell you I am getting emails for people who need medical supplies. We need, if you can manage, to have those medical supplies and food brought to help deal with the devastation. And it'll only be a Band-Aid, but it will be a life-saving Band-Aid. Thank you.
Now I'd like to bring up Noam Gilmore from the interim CEO of JCRC.
Good afternoon. I'm going to start by reading an email that I got on Sunday morning from my graduate school at Brandeis University. The Schusterman Center for Israel Studies extends our deepest condolences to Professor Ilan Tron, my professor, our founding director, to his wife, Dr. Carol Troen, and to their entire family. Debbie Shachar Tron Matias and Shlomo Matias, daughter and son-in-law of Carol and Ilan, were murdered in their home in Kibbutz Cholit. They died protecting their son Rotem, who was injured but survived, and Rotem's two sisters also survived the attacks. I never want to get an email like this again. After the things that we saw, it is unconscionable to have to know these things, to have to see these images, and know that our children will see them too. I want to speak very directly to all the public officials in New York City and New York State. Take a note from the page of your senator who speaks with moral clarity. There is no justification for the inhumanity, the brutality, and the barbarism that we saw. You all saw it. And if you do not have the moral clarity and the courage to speak up right now, you need to evaluate, you need to reevaluate your life choices. This is very clear where you need to be. Your voices need to be heard. And you should all be sounding like the senator and leading like the senator on this. My sister was in a bomb shelter for too long. My cousins are off to war. My friends are off to war. I haven't slept in days. Now is the moment. Lead. Do not equivocate. Stand with Israel. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now like to invite up Belle Yoeli, the Chief Advocacy Officer for the American Jewish Community.
Thank you so much, Senator. I want to start off by saying that as I've worked at AJC, I've had the privilege, first in DC, working with the Senator and her team, and I've seen firsthand how she's such a stalwart ally of the Jewish people of the state of Israel. And I know that she's doing everything she can right now to make sure Israel gets whatever needs, as you've heard, and we're so grateful on behalf of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. We're also grateful. Every single effort counts. I'm emotional because as I'm standing here, I'm getting texts from my colleagues at AJC in Israel who were called up to reserve duty, as were 300,000 Israelis. And they're live texting from a bunker in the north of Israel because Hezbollah, as mentioned, another Iranian-backed terror group, which is based in Lebanon, seizing territory, holding territory, and too much control, has also joined the fray and is now attacking Israel. The Israeli people urgently need our help and our support. This is only going to get worse. And what the senator is doing, and what the president is doing, what Congress is doing, it cannot change. It cannot change when the state of Israel starts to defend itself, as any country would. The narrative cannot shift. And I'll come back to that in a moment, but I want to repeat some of the statistics that we've already heard, because they're not just statistics. You have to understand, everyone standing here, this is our family. The Jewish people, the state of Israel, we are one family. Our family is being murdered. As of today, there are over 1,200 dead, 40 babies executed. Babies, children, teenagers, elderly, disabled, in their homes, in their beds, on the streets, running for their lives. This number also includes, just as of today, 22 Americans. This is not just about us. 22 Americans. This is Israel's 9/11, and all of us can understand that. This morning, I attended the funeral over Zoom of a member of my closest family in Israel. She was a beautiful 19-year-old woman named Noam, who was murdered by Hamas. Her crime was that she was a new soldier whose job was to patrol the borders of Israel to keep it safe. And if it's not immediately clear from everything that's happened, I think we all understand just how important that job is. And she can't do it because she's never coming back to her family or her friends. There are 200 hostages. As we're standing here right now, they're with monsters. Their family is in a constant state of agony. And all of their friends, as are all of us. And that doesn't just include Israelis. That's American and citizens of over 10 other nationalities. 2,700 injured. It just gets worse and worse. We could go on forever, but we're not going to. This support is so important, and I want to say at 2 p.m., the entire diplomatic community of New York is gathering with the American Jewish community to also stand with Israel, because every bit of support helps. The last thing I want to say, and the senator knows this well, we cannot allow for moral equivalence between Israel and genocidal terrorists. We cannot compare. That has to be clear. My colleague said there has to be moral clarity. There is no comparison. And if you are defending the actions of Hamas, you are sympathizing with terrorists. Hamas is holding the Palestinian people hostage. Don't defend their actions. Hold them accountable. Help stand up for Israel. Help bring the hostages home. And more importantly, and most importantly, Israel will not back down. The Jewish people will not stop defending our rights to live in peace, supported by our strongest ally in the United States. Am Yisrael Chai. The Jewish people live on and will live on, and thank you, Senator, for allowing us to make that happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Rosenthal, VP of Government Relations for UJA Federation.
Thank you, Senator. We've all seen the brutality, and even though you're looking at it, it is still truly unbelievable. But the national anthem of Israel is Hatikva, it's hope. And what gives me hope, what gives me some comfort is the tens of thousands of New Yorkers that showed up last night in front of the UN on 24-hour notice to stand in support of Israel. What gives me hope is the leaders behind me have all stood together and worked closely together and unified in ways that are unimaginable to help the people in Israel. The CEO of UJA right now was in Israel for the holiday and stayed there to help with the first response, where UJA has given over $10 million so far to help the victims, to help the Israelis that are suffering. And what gives me hope is the president's speech last night, unequivocally condemning the terrible acts of violence. What gives me hope is the senator supports her calls of actions not only to help Israel, but to help the Jewish community here in New York. And we are forever grateful for those actions. various security measures calling for the increase in funding, which is truly, and unfortunately we know we're not being cliche, it's truly life-saving. So thank you, Senator.
Our next speaker is Scott Richmond, Anti-Defamation League.
Thank you so much, Senator. So many people ask me, is this the 1930s? Are we returning to a Holocaust? And what I always say to them is, no. You know why? Because of people like Senator Gillibrand. In the 1930s, that was government-sponsored anti-Semitism. To have elected officials who stand up with courage and with clear thinking and say, no, this will not stand, it's totally different. So thank you so much, Senator Gillibrand, for all you're doing and for all you propose. On Saturday, as the horrific nature of what was going on in Israel became clear, the women who were raped, the babies who were beheaded, the teens who were slaughtered, as that became clear, I said to myself, as the director of ADL, this time it's going to be different. This time, people are going to mute their response. They're not going to be able to stand up and say, we are going to defend this. As the day went on Saturday, as the terrorists were still engaging in terrorism, I saw that was not going to be the case. By Sunday morning, 39 rallies across the United States had already been set. 39 pro-Hamas rallies by Sunday morning, and many more through the week. ADL Center on Extremism has been monitoring. We broke Shabbat, we broke the holiday to monitor all of the activity, all of the anti-Israel activity, all of the anti-Semitic activity that is going on in this country. And what did we see? By Sunday morning, an avalanche of anti-Semitism, an avalanche of anti-Semitic activity. Groups on campuses chanting, glory to the resistance. What resistance? These are terrorists, these are extremists. If they were Jewish extremists, I would be calling them out. Why are these people not calling out extremists in their midst? They should not be siding with them. We saw on social media, and when I talk about anti-Israel, I'm talking about on the left, but on social media, we saw an incredible amount of anti-Semitism on the right. On the right, this is on both sides, a 485% increase, we noted, in anti-Semitism on Telegram channels. This is on the far right. The extremes are united in supporting this, and we in the center need to hold strong. Tomorrow, you may know, there's going to be a day of resistance. And an incredible number of people have signed on to a day of resistance. We need to stand strong against this. I'm doing that, the senator is doing that, all of the people behind me are doing that, and everybody listening should be doing that. We stand with Israel, we stand with decency, as Malcolm Hoenlein said, Am Yisrael Chai.
I want to recognize David Greenfield from Met Council has joined us, and I wanted to invite anyone else up who wants to speak. Daniel or Elsie or want to speak.
He did.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, we'll take questions. We're happy to take on-topic questions for anyone here.
Senator, do you know of any New Yorkers who have been killed or are missing at this hour?
Yes. Someone mentioned the same family, but I think the rabbi did. A New York family's son has been taken as a hostage, and we are working with the State Department right now to figure out what is the best way to help to release these hostages. What will the process be for releasing hostages? And I stand ready to advocate on behalf of that family in any way I can.
Is there anything to follow up, if I may? Is there anything that the Biden administration is not doing now that they should be doing?
I was briefed last night. I was briefed yesterday morning by the DOD, by the State Department, specifically on that question. And so far, all of the things that Israel has asked for, America has been able to give right away. They're most concerned about having the munitions that you need for Iron Dome. Because these attacks have come from so many places, usually you can prevent missiles from striking by placing Iron Dome batteries in the correct places. But because missiles are coming from so many directions, they need probably those 2 additional batteries that we're going to try to send from the U.S. They definitely need more interceptors, and so we had a supply of interceptors in Israel that was supposed to come to the United States. We've already diverted that supply to go straight to Israel's needs. So whatever they need, we are going to give them. We've also moved a carrier group, the Ford carrier group, into the region, and we've also augmented our aircraft and our Air Force to be ready to be of assistance.
Senator, to expand on NJ's question, we're hearing from a lot of Americans in Israel that the State Department simply saying find what commercial flights you can is not a sufficient answer right now. Does the State Department need to be doing more at this moment?
They do, and I've written a letter already yesterday to the State Department asking for aircraft to do emergency evacuations, like we've done in other natural disasters or times of war. And so we are urging the State Department to provide that aircraft now, because the commercial flights would normally be dropping people in Israel and then taking people away, but no one's landing. And so if you have a commercial flight in and out of Israel, it's likely not going to be there. And so the only option for a lot of families is to take a regional flight, but the regional flights can often be very expensive. And so if they don't have the resources to book a different kind of flight, they have no options. So we're asking for emergency evacuation.
What is the holdup with either a military plane or a series of charters? You see other nations pretty equivalent to the United States, Canada, Mexico, regional partners doing this. What are you hearing is the holdup from the Biden administration?
I haven't heard there's a holdup, and I've not been told no. So my expectation is they are preparing to do that now, if it hasn't already started. So the goal is to do it immediately, but I don't know for sure. So I have to get a response, and then I'll know how quickly it's going to happen, and if there's a delay, why there's a delay. But there should not be a delay in this circumstance.
Senator, we heard from a group of tourism that are right there in Israel, and they were kicked out from the hotel right now, and they don't have a place to go. Where they went to the embassy, they told that they have to make an appointment. Is there any way that they can get some help from the government?
Yes. So if anyone needs help from the government, they can email my office at casework@gillibrand.senate.gov. We can call the State Department on their behalf. We can find out what are the methods for evacuation. We can find out what are safe places to stay, how to get access to the embassy, and how to get an appointment. So casework, CASEWORK @gillibrand.senate.gov, and we will stand ready. My staff is here. We're doing these emergency evacuations. We did the same work when Afghanistan collapsed. We are positioned to do the same work now.
Senator, I have a follow-up on a related topic. It's kind of an off-topic related to this crisis. In the wake of the atrocities committed by Hamas, President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, a country that's a close ally of the United States in Latin America, he compared the actions of the Israeli military to Nazi Germany. And some of your colleagues in Congress so far have begun to criticize him sharply for his failure to condemn Hamas and support Israel. And I'm wondering if you can share with us your thoughts on these comments by someone who actually is the president of an important country and a close ally of the United States.
I condemn his remarks in the fullest extent, and clearly he doesn't understand his history. It's an outrage to compare what's happening in Israel right now and to accuse Israeli Defense Forces of committing atrocities that the Nazis committed. It's an outrageous comparison, and he should be strongly condemned by all world leaders. Any other questions?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.